Hello and welcome into the Coast to Coast show. My name is Erik Ruby. I'm joined at the desk right now by Mr. Vaughan Jones. And in today's show, we're going to be joined by Nate Smith and Jacob Lev to talk some NFL. Matthew Stolbof will update us on the world of college football. And Nick Frias has the latest happenings in the NHL. And of course, Alex Weiner will be joining us to discuss the budding college basketball season. But first, Vaughan, we have a lot of basketball to talk about, a lot of NBA news. And you can't talk about the NBA without talking about the Warriors. But this year, it's a different story. Ever since Steph Curry went out with a groin injury, Golden State has seemed, well, beatable for the first time in a long time. But they still have guys like Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. So why have they seemed so off recently?
So I think what it is, the stat that's been brought up the most is that the Warriors are taking the most mid-range shots that they've taken as a team per game since Steve Kerr has joined the coaching staff. And I think that's definitely because a mid-range is a low-efficiency shot. And the more mid-range you're taking versus the more three-pointers you're taking, they used to be playing futuristic basketball. And now that everyone is caught up to the curve, they seem more archaic the more mid-range shots that they're taking. And Kevin Durant is shooting a lot, and he's scoring a lot, but he's also shooting a lot. And that mid-range seems to be his kind of favorite zone. Even on in transition opportunities, if there's a guy back, he'll shoot a mid-range in transition, which I think is a sin. But Steph Curry is so integral to that playmaking. He stretches the floor so well. He draws so much defensive attention with his shooting that him being out basically just makes the Warriors a little bit more beatable. They just lost to the Raptors. Curry will be back this week, though, so we're going to see how that affects their mid-range shooting statistics.
Now, a lot of the talk surrounding the Warriors so far has been about Curry being out and Durant leaving or not being able to lead the team, so he's going to leave in the offseason. Do you make anything of the drama between Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, and the Warriors franchise as a whole, or is it just another bump on the road to another championship?
You know what? I think they've been hanging out together for a couple years, and you just eventually you got to get sick of something like that. And winning is amazing and it feels great every single time, but that high of winning a championship only lasts for so long. And 15 games into the season they start fighting. I think it's just a bump in the road because I think the Warriors still are the favorite to win the West. And I think we're going to remember maybe 40 games from now when the Warriors have won 45 games. It's I remember that. I think it's going to be something that it's going to be a flash in the pan kind of thing, and they're going to come back, play their futuristic basketball, they're going to win games.
Well, as of right now, maybe not in the future, but right now, the Warriors seem beatable. But of all teams, the Clippers look dominant. The team commonly referred to as LA's stepchild sit atop the Western Conference at now 15-6. Now, I don't think anybody expects this to hold up for the rest of the season, but do you see the Clippers heading in the playoffs with a top 4 seed?
That's a really good question. Last year, the Clippers were bottom 10 in offensive rating, and then they were the middle of the pack in defense rating. They're currently middle of the pack in defensive rating, top 5 in offensive rating. I don't think that's sustainable at all, but their roster doesn't have a lot of turnover. Doc Rivers is a good coach when he's given the personnel. I think the thing that the Clippers have that a lot of other good teams don't is depth. When you look at the Warriors, there's a team there, there's a lot of really talented players there. There's 4 All-Stars there. There's no depth. Maybe 5 when DeMarcus Cousins comes back. But there's not a lot of depth. You're starting Damian Jones right now, or you're starting Jordan Bell right now. And that's, But with the Clippers, you have 12 solid guys. Gilgeous-Alexander is surprising. Tobias Harris is doing just as well as he's done in any prior season. Avery Bradley had a great night after, having an off shot the first few games. I think the Clippers are going to end up maybe 5 or 6 seed, which is a huge jump over not making the playoffs. They've looked better than, and Boban Marjanovic is just so fun to watch. He's my favorite player to watch in basketball. I think the Clippers are going to end in a 5 or 6 seed kind of area.
And even if this hot start doesn't keep up, I think it's important to realize that in this Western Conference, and where last season the 3 through 8 seeds were determined by just a few games, if you get off to a hot start, when you hit your slump later in the season, you have a lot more of a cushion, which could be the difference between home court and going away for your first playoff series, which could be huge for a team like the Clippers, who have struggled in the playoffs in the past. Different personnel. I want a
4-5 matchup of the Lakers Clippers so that they just don't have to leave Los Angeles. That's all I want.
Fair. So we've talked a lot about the top of the West, but let's jump over to the top of the East. The Toronto Raptors and their newest addition, and Kawhi Leonard, are off to a scorching hot start. They have an NBA best record 19-4, including most recently a win over the Golden State Warriors. But overall, their schedule has been around subpar. Vaughn, are the Raptors a product of their schedule, or are they the real deal?
So, with a rookie head coach in Nick Nurse, the Raptors are doing a lot of ISOing. Like I noticed this at the end of that Warriors game. There was a lot of ISO ball being played, and that makes sense. Like you're gonna play ISO with Kawhi Leonard. That makes sense against a team like the Suns or a team, teams that the Raptors have played. That kind of game works. But they saw that it didn't work now against the Golden State Warriors, and I think that they're gonna have to adjust their game a little bit. But I think that they could still definitely, I think they could still win the East. I think their current hot start, the NBA best record, is a product of that scheduling. But I still think they're a good team. I still think they're a solid playoff team, an Eastern Conference Finals contender. It makes sense to say that Warriors-Raptors game was a little bit of an NBA Finals preview. I want to see 7 of those games in June. And I think the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green has been fantastic this year. Vaughan Jones is always consistent. Ibaka's having one of his better years in the last few years. I think the Raptors could still make the NBA Finals. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for them as the season goes on when they actually have to play all those better teams, because easy schedule now, tougher schedule later. But I think that's gonna build up, and that fatigue is gonna build up. But as long as Leonard stays healthy, Kyle Lowry stays healthy, and doesn't choke like he has in the last 8 years of his NBA basketball career, I think that the Raptors are actually for real.
And a name the casual NBA fan probably isn't aware of, Pascal Siakam.
Pascal Siakam
is a name that I want to focus on because
I picked him in fantasy. I love him so much.
He is a baller.
Yes, he is. Oh,
he's
yeah.
out there for most improved player, I believe, this year, along with a lot of other people. Nikola Vucevic in Orlando is just another name. But I think with the Raptors, if you're a good team, and it seems very easy and simple to say, but if you're a good team in the NBA, the way you keep that record is you beat the bad teams.
Exactly, yeah.
The way you see the Celtics drop to 11-10 where they're at right now, they lose to teams you're not supposed to lose to. The emphasis on a good team is you beat the teams you're supposed to, which the Raptors have pretty much every single time this season.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like you roll into Phoenix and you roll over the Suns. You're supposed to do that. The Celtics were down 40 at one point, or 30 at one point against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. Like you see the good teams beat bad teams, and the Raptors have beaten all those bad teams. They've struggled against the teams like the Bucks, who are a very good team. So they went down to the wire in overtime against the Warriors, which obviously is a good team. So you need to look at the Raptors and you see that they're winning what they're supposed to, and even some of those games that they weren't really supposed to. I think if Curry was healthy, that would have been a much different game against Golden State. But that win, one out of the 2 against Golden State, picking up that series is fantastic.
Yep. So you heard it here first, guys. You have to beat bad teams to be a good team in the NBA. Well, the NBA season is just over a quarter of the way done, but college football season is quickly coming to a close. For more on bowl season, we go to college football analyst Matt Stolbof.
Thanks, Eric. This week is the week in college football, a time of stress and suffering for many fans. While most colleges are waiting for their bowl games to be announced, only a few worthy teams get a chance to play in their conference championship games. Teams like Bama, Clemson, and Georgia have a chance to solidify themselves into the college football playoff by doing one simple thing: winning. While Oklahoma and Ohio State may just slip into the Final Four cracks thanks to this extra week of college football. And Notre Dame fans might have to do the toughest thing out of everyone: relax and watch the games on TV like the rest of us and hope that nothing too crazy happens by the end of the week. Enjoy Week 14, college football fans, because this week is football's definition of insanity.
Thanks, Matt. Along with college football, the NFL is inching ever so close to the playoffs. I'm now joined by our NFL analysts, Nate Smith and Jacob Lev. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Good. Couldn't be better.
Football season, baby. Now, when you look at the AFC playoff picture, you have the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots sitting atop the conference with a first-round bye. Baltimore would play at the Texans, and the Chargers would face off and travel to play the Steelers. Now, would you consider there to be a dark horse to maybe sneak into the AFC playoffs, or when they get in there, to go on a run?
Yeah, I'll start with the dark horses. For me, it's the Colts, and for a lot of people, it'd be an obvious pick because they've been on fire lately. They've won 5 in a row. Luck is playing MVP-level football. He could honestly sneak into the MVP conversation if he keeps it up over these next last few games. But yeah, for me, it's the Colts right now. I'll sneak in as a dark horse as like a 6 or a 5 seed.
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I was going to say San Diego Chargers, but they play in Los Angeles now. They have been, I think, a team that's been slept on. They should be getting more attention. It's just because they play in the same division as the Chiefs. Philip Rivers is having a career year, and that's saying something because he's had a great career. He's got almost a 70% completion percentage this year, which he's been averaging 64% for his career. He's got over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. If he could keep this up, I could even see them beating a team like the Chiefs because their defense. And now they also got Bosa back and Melvin Ingram, and Joey Bosa. Both of them combined, I think, are one of the more dynamic pass rushers in the league. So I think this team's going to make a lot of noise, especially come the playoff time. Teams are going to be very scared to play them.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that for the Chargers, they are really good, I agree. But one thing I look at is the 4 out of their next 5 games, very tough schedule coming up. They go Steelers, Chiefs, Ravens, and Broncos for the last 5. Those are all quality teams, so it's going to be tough, but I agree with that. I think they can make a run.
I think it's interesting with the Chargers because it seems like every NFL preseason, the Chargers are everybody's favorite dark horse team to sneak in. But once we get about halfway through the season, people just stop talking about them, whether it's the injuries, whether it's just they're playing bad. But this season, they just seem to be middling around there, and maybe in the playoffs, maybe not in the playoffs. Most likely going to get in, but not exactly a lot of talk around them. A lot more talk about a team like the Colts. I just think it's interesting how they're almost everybody's favorite team going into the season. But like you said, by the time we get to right now in the point of the year, nobody's really talking about it. But let's jump over to the NFC. Now, as of right now, the Rams and Saints have a first-round bye. The Redskins are set to take on the Bears, and the Vikings would travel to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys. Now, same question as the AFC. Are there any dark horses to grab a spot in the NFC playoffs, or anybody outside looking in that's going to be able to make a run?
Yeah, I'm going to go Seattle as my dark horse team for the NFC. They're currently sitting just outside, but their schedule down the stretch is amazing. They play the Niners 2 times, and then they play the Cardinals as well. So in my eyes, in most people's eyes, I would say, that's 3 wins right there. Russell Wilson's been keeping this team afloat all year. I got to give a lot of credit to Pete Carroll. Lost a ton of guys in the past couple of years. There's just been a lot of tumultuous locker room talk within there. Losing Sherman, losing Cam Chancellor. And just to keep this team afloat, and they're actually above 500 right now, that's a huge credit to Pete Carroll. And Seattle plays good football. They run the ball really well. I could see them sneaking into the NFC and possibly making some noise.
I do happen to agree with the Seahawks, but I'm going to go the Cowboys here. They're in the playoffs right now. After last night, if they can put on a performance like that every single, I'm not saying, blowing out opponents, but keeping it close, Dak Prescott being accurate. Also, Amari Cooper. He's been unreal since he's got traded from the Raiders. 424 yards and 3 touchdowns in 5 games. If he could keep that up, this team's going to be dangerous. And their linebacking duo of Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, it's kind of reminiscent of like the 2015 Panthers that made the Super Bowl with Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly. This team is going to be very scary to face, and I honestly could even see them winning the NFC East when it's all said and done, because all the other teams are struggling a little bit.
I think right now they win it by default just because Washington doesn't have a quarterback anymore, and the Eagles have looked horrible.
And the Giants
are nothing to be scared of. But another team I would keep my eye on that's currently in the playoff picture, the Bears, man. 3rd in points per game allowed and 4th in yards per game allowed defensively. Matt Nagy's been doing a great job offensively. One thing to look out for, though, is Mitch Trubisky's been banged up. He's had a shoulder issue. He might miss this week as well. Entering the playoffs, if he's not healthy, I think that's a big question mark for them. But if he's healthy, that's a team to look out for
Chase
as well.
Daniels, the new Nick Foles.
Oh, God. I think to touch real quick on the Seahawks, I think the most impressive part for them is now they have a resemblance of an offensive line to protect Russell Wilson.
It's been better.
It's not great,
right.
But it's somebody that now somebody in Russell Wilson that had no protection before, has time to throw, has time to dissect the defense. You can see what he's doing now.
Yeah.
You can see how good he was before, but now he's really able to show his talent. He's able to show what he does because he's not getting sacked every 30 seconds.
Amazing how that works. Same thing with Andrew Luck. Finally has an O-line. Look at him. He's been amazing.
Now, let's shift from looking at the future to looking at the now. When you look at this week's slate of games, which one stands out to you as a potential game of the week?
I'm going to go Browns-Texans here. I cannot believe we're saying that the Browns are on a game of the week, but this is a battle of the quarterbacks. Same thing with the Rams and the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. It's Deshaun versus Baker. I think it comes down to who plays better. Baker's been very good this year. I think he's been the best rookie quarterback. He's been the best.
Yeah,
he's got over 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And then we can't discount what Deshaun's been doing coming off of a torn ACL last year. He's on, what are they on, a 9-game win streak now? He's got almost 3,000 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Both of them have been producing great. And also the defenses, Myles Garrett versus J.J. Watt. Both have over 10 sacks this year. This is going to be a sneaky good game, and a game that, I think has a little bit more of a playoff implication than some might think, because the Browns are still in the hunt.
Now, who do you think comes out on top of that game?
I'm still going to go with the Texans. The Texans, I'm going to ride the hot hand, 9-game win streak. They looked very good on Monday Night Football against the Titans. I'm going to give it to the Texans for this one, but the Browns are going to be scary in a couple years from now.
Nate?
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and it would be wild if the Browns somehow snuck into the AFC playoffs. But my attention is on the sexy game, if you will, Sunday Night Football, Chargers at Steelers, two dynamite teams at the moment. Interesting, though, two bit of different directions right now. The Steelers coming off a heartbreaking loss in Denver. Chargers coming off a just brutalizing win over the Cardinals last week, 45-10. Interesting stat, though. Steelers, 14-1 straight up in their last 15 games in primetime. I like the Steelers in this one. I like Big Ben to get back on track. At home, they've just been dominant, over 35 points a game. Chargers, though, have been playing very good defense with Joey Bosa back. I think it's close, but I think the Steelers edge it in a close one by about a field goal.
I also want to see James Conner finally, come back. I think he's been struggling since the Panthers game on Thursday Night Football. I would like to see him get the ball a little bit more because he's been kind of struggling the past couple weeks.
That'd be a good test for him.
A lot of interesting games, a lot of interesting storylines in the NFL, but let's transition from the gridiron to the rink. Our NHL analyst Nick Frias has an update on hockey.
Thanks, Eric. The NHL is 2 months into the 2018-2019 season, and there are a few surprises as the league starts to take shape, most notably the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo recently won 10 straight games and are currently sitting at 36 points, the second highest point total in the league. Unfortunately, a closer look into advanced stats show that they're overperforming right now, so expect a regression for the Sabres soon. In the West, Calgary has dominated since benching goaltender Mike Smith in favor of David Rittich, who is in the top 5 in all statistical goalie categories. Another big surprise is that the Pittsburgh Penguins are currently on the outside looking in, but they have 4 months to fix that. There's a lot of hockey still to be played, and a lot can still happen. Back to you, Eric.
Thanks, Nick. Now, for our final segment of the day, we take a deep dive into college basketball with a local twist. Joining me at the desk is college basketball analyst Alex Weiner. Alex, how are you?
I'm not too bad. How about you?
Oh, I'm great. Now, college basketball season has started off, and the Pac-12 has been disappointing to say the least. Schools like U of A, UCLA, and the Pac-12's only ranked team in Oregon already have 2 losses. But the Arizona State Sun Devils have emerged as the lone bright spot in the conference, sitting at an impressive 6-0 with a win over then-ranked number 15 Mississippi State. Alex, what has been the Sun Devils' key to success so far this season?
Well, the soon-to-be ranked Devils, I would imagine, have just been really balanced. I mean, this is a team that was heavily reliant on the three-pointer last year. They were small this year. They've gained a lot of size back, and even though they've had some injuries to guys like Rob Edwards and even Remy Martin in their last game, they still have that depth that they need in order to take it to the next level in Bobby Hurley's plan to get this program amongst one of the tops in the Pac-12. And right now they are among the top in the Pac-12.
Now, when you say depth, I want to really focus on that, because if you take a look just a year ago, ASU, undefeated, non-conference, which is very, very impressive, but just a completely different team.
Oh, yes. This team has size. They crash the boards really well. They're one of the top rebounding teams in the country so far, which is amazing compared to last year where they just did not have size. They had Romello White starting and they had Daquan Lake off the bench, but other than that, the size came from guys like Mickey Mitchell and Vitaly Scheibel, who may not have been totally aggressive. So I think that with the size now they have with Cheatham and with just the fact that they have so many good wings, like bringing in Tayshaun Cherry, this team is completely different. It's completely differently built, and that's what's making them so much better.
And last year, if you had a guy like Shannon Evans or Trey Holder or Cody Justice not have a good game, it was more than likely your offense was become stagnant. But now we have guys like Kamani Lawrence, Tayshaun Cherry, Lugans Dort, who I can't believe we've actually gotten this far without saying Lugans Dort's name, because the man is a beast.
He leads all freshmen in scoring so far in points per game. I mean, there's R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, but still Dort has scored at a higher rate than those guys. So it's been just incredible to watch him. He's been so aggressive getting to the rim. And that's the big thing. Last year it was live by the 3, die by the 3. If one of them had a bad game, as you mentioned, they were kind of in a rocky situation. Now that they get to the rim, they get to the free throw line, they get pounded inside more, as well as shoot from the perimeter, just that balance gives them a whole other dynamic.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see where ASU ends up at the end of the non-conference schedule this season, because they still have games against Kansas, where they traveled to last year, and in Nevada as well. Where do you see their record shaping out at the end of the non-conference schedule?
The Kansas and Nevada, I think that they could potentially split those ones. I think that'll be a very tough matchup, but I think that the way that they've looked now and getting ready, especially Kansas being at home, I think potentially they could split those two.
So only about 1 loss going in.
I think so, actually.
That's pretty impressive for an ASU team where a few years ago, if you said ASU would be sitting atop the Pac-12, people probably would have laughed at you.
Yes.
Now, as we transition more to a national level, Duke's Coach K got upset with reporters earlier this week for calling his squad unbeatable, which we learned isn't true. Now, what weaknesses have the Blue Devils shown so far this season?
Well, I mean, it's tough to find them, obviously, especially with the starting lineup being as deep as it is, especially offensively. Ultimately, you have to play a really efficient game if you do not turn the ball over, if you keep your possessions, and you capitalize like Gonzaga was able to, as well as shooting efficiently from three. That is how you do it. You have to be efficient and you have to be clean, and that's how you can beat Duke.
So would you say their problem is maybe they don't know how to maybe calm down in a half-court style offense? You have your three supersized guy like R.J. Barrett, who seems to always want to have the ball in his hand, which is fair. He's always been the best player on his team. He might still be the best player on his team. So he always wants the ball in his hands. A guy like Zion, who could take over the game, either fast break, half court, and a post-up. And then a guy like Cam Reddish, who's gone a little bit under the radar this season. It could be kind of hard to split that time between three people in a half court, but when you're running out in fast break, it's a lob to Zion, it's a dunk by RJ.
Right, if you slow the game down, make it a half-court style game, force one of them to maybe be the alpha, and usually that's been R.J. Barrett, who just does not shoot at as high of a clip as a guy like Cam Reddish, or Zion, or he's not as efficient as Zion is. I think if you slow the game down and really take care of the basketball, because if you give them extra possessions, they're going to run all over you. But if you play clean, I think that's where you have a good shot at it. But you got to be a really talented team offensively to get that done. And Gonzaga, we saw a lot of that from them.
Yeah, speaking of Gonzaga, we can look at the team that did defeat Duke this season. Duke's only loss. They might be the best team in the nation. Gonzaga off to a hot 6-0 start and show no plans to slow down anytime soon. Now the question is simple, Alex. Are the Bulldogs the best team in the country?
Right now they are, because they've proven it. They've gone out and beaten a juggernaut in Duke that people consider to be like flawless before that game. And, you know, so far 7-0. Their offense is second best in the country as far as scoring to the Citadel, who hasn't really played anybody. So Gonzaga's offense has probably been the most effective in the country so far. They have 6 guys, I believe, averaging over 9 points per game, 4 around 15 or higher. So just a lot of depth. They pass the ball incredibly well. They're great at moving the ball around and getting the shots that they want. Really effective and really well coached by Mark Few.
You think it's possible for them to run the board, undefeated regular season?
Oof. I would never bet on a team going undefeated for a regular season because that's so rare. I think they'll maybe have a misstep maybe once or twice, but ultimately I don't think they'll lose very much.
The same way people talked about Duke maybe going undefeated, have that misstep against a very good team in Gonzaga. Well, thank you, Alex, and that will do it for here at the Coast to Coast Show. For Vaughan Jones, Matt Stolbof, Nate Smith, Jacob Lev, Nick Frias, Alex Weiner, and everyone behind the scenes who make this show work, my name is Erik Ruby. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.